Hi, thanks for tuning in. Today I wanted to share my top tips for traveling with luxury items. So those are like our Chanel bags, our Hermes bags, and even jewelry pieces. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, you may have noticed that I recently had traveled overseas, and I thought it was a timely video to share how I packed most of my luxury goods. Some of these tips might be already really well known or really obvious to you, so I don't mean to be Captain Obvious over here, but I do hope you find some of these tips to be really helpful. So my number one tip is to always travel with your luxury items in your carry-on. So especially with international travel, a lot of times you can have, two bags that you can check or more, and the ease of not having a carry-on, like a roller bag to carry on with you all the time, might be enticing, but for me personally, I like the peace of mind of knowing that the items, like the high value items, are with me at all times, and I'm not kind of shipping them off and having them out of sight for a prolonged period of time. So for me personally, I tend to always have a carry-on suitcase as well as a carry-on bag. So that's my personal item with my roller bag as the things that I take with me on the plane, and those are the items that are filled with my high valuables, like our bags, jewelry, as well as your computer and other items like that. Then the next tip for traveling with luxury items is to really pack versatile items that transition very nicely from day to night, so that I don't have to bring like 16 bags to accommodate the different occasions or places that I'll be going to. So for a little bit of eye candy, this is my Chanel So Black Chevron mini flat bag. And because it is all black and it's not super flashy, this is perfect to use for the daytime, and it also transitions very nicely into nighttime or daytime looks because it is sleek and all black. On top of it, it has this PVC coating, which also means it's better for inclement weather, and it's just a very, very versatile piece to have and to carry with me. So most of my travels, if I can accommodate this item, then I will, and because I know I can use it day, night, and when the weather isn't that great. Another versatile piece are these Chanel pumps right here, and you can see they have this little kitten heel and have a very classic silhouette. So as nice as it is to take those like stilettos for nights out, I try to be really realistic, and unless I know I have an event, like I'm traveling and I know there's going to be like a celebration or something that I know will be great to have those kinds of stilettos, I try to take pieces like this where I know I can wear them easily during the day because they won't hurt my feet too badly, and I can also dress these up for nighttime. My next tip is to always check the width of space that you have left in your suitcase and the width of your item. So what I mean by that is when you look at the side of your suitcase as you're packing items into it, there's always going to be like a maximum height that it can accommodate, and you want to check that the maximum point of your bag will fit within that. So for example, if I take this clutch right here, so this is a relatively flat clutch item, right? So and it's a little bit squishy, so I would really only need about a couple inches clearance on my suitcase to make sure that this item won't get squished too badly when I close it. In addition, when it comes to this mini flap that I introduced earlier, I'd also want to make sure, given the knob in the front over here on the turn lock, that maybe you want like 5 or 6 inches of clearance across the top of your suitcase to make sure that it doesn't get pushed too badly. Beyond that, so let's say you only have 3 inches of space left and you really wanted to put this in there, like it could fit. You could, kind of compress it down and it could fit, but at that point I would fear that there's too much damage that might get done to the structure of the bag, and I would opt either not to take it or to rearrange the items in my suitcase so that I do have enough clearance to fit this item. So an example of an item that did not fit in my carry-on suitcase is my Picotin 18 right here. So The thing about this bag, as gorgeous as it is, it does have an interesting shape. The bottom of it is rectangular, which seems like any standard bag, but the flaps that come out are on the thin side of the rectangle, if that makes sense. And the front and the back are kind of on the longer edge of the rectangle. So rather than the handbag base being like this, it's like this. And because of that, I had the choice to try and fit my suitcase in this way, because this is the maximum, this was pretty much the maximum clearance I had. And there was no way I could fit it in this way on my carry-on. So I could fit it in this way, but that meant I would have had to have squished a lot of the bag down for it to fit, and I was risking this width being just the same as my suitcase and not wanting to really smush it in too much. So what I did for this bag was actually packed it in my carry-on bag, so not my suitcase but the handheld bag. And for that I took my Dior Voyage shopping tote, and this, although this looks thin, this was able to fit my bag perfectly. So I put it in the dust bag, and I put this bag, I just nested it right inside here, and that's how I carried this on the flight. Now when I nested this bag inside, I didn't want this to just have dead space in it, so I actually filled it like I normally would carry this handbag. So it had all of my like my pouches inside. I had some extra like earbuds and things like that. So I used this like it was an extra compartment in the bag, so that I wasn't just, you know, wasting space and leaving this stuffed with like air, paper, or other kind of stuffing. So the next packing tip is around stuffing your items with other items that you plan to take on your trip. So for example, inside this mini flap, I can fit my sunglasses. These are both in soft pouches. So if I put one inside, and then I put the other one, and I kind of like zigzag them in there, then it fits perfectly. I mean, if you needed to put some other smaller items, you probably could on the side. But then that way the bags still have some stuffing inside them, but it's not just like tissue paper or just empty things that you won't use. These are actually filled with things that you will use on your trip, and you can save space in your suitcase that way. Another thing that I like to stuff my bags with is actually like socks and underwear, things like that. So this item has stuffing inside, right? But this is actually quite wasteful when you get to your destination. So inside you can just pack it full with your underwear or socks, or really anything. If you have like hats and scarves that you want to take, you can also place those all inside here, and make sure it's pretty, for an item like this that's like an envelope style where I know it can squish a little. I try to make sure I pack it pretty taut, like pretty full, so that there isn't too much room for it to collapse on itself. The next tip is to always pack your items in the dust bags. So even if you don't typically use your dust bags when you store your items in your home, I would highly recommend that you use your dust bags when you take them on your travels, to prevent anything from happening while they're inside your suitcase or inside your carry-on. There could be a lot of like items that rub together. When it comes to your shoes, sometimes if they rub against each other, they could leave marks on each other. If your bag is in there with some other items, you know, it could rub against, and there's always a chance that something can happen to them while they're in such tight spaces, that I highly recommend that you use your dust bags. So I used to travel with all of my jewelry in like a set or a designed travel case for jewelry, and a lot of times I felt like it just took up a lot of space. I liked the concept and I liked the organization, but oftentimes it was like this big box for me to put like a few necklaces on one side and the earrings in another corner, and it just didn't feel like it was a very efficient use of space. So when it comes to jewelry, or especially when it comes to earrings, I like to use pill boxes for that. So these are like, you know, the pill containers that you can often find in the pharmacy. And as you can see, I have like my big Chanel vintage earrings that did not come in any box. They fit nicely, one in each ear. Another large pair of earrings that take one each. And then in these I put, you know, the pair of earrings that I have, or sometimes I'll put several pair inside here. And that means this small, like pretty concise container fits about 6 pairs of earrings, and this is pretty much all I would need when I'm traveling, because I don't need too many pairs, or I can fit a few extra pairs. If you're concerned about the rattling and the rattling doing any kind of damage, you can always stuff a little bit of tissue in each one to prevent more like movement happening, and then you should really like be all set in terms of, you know, having any damage done on any of these items. Where possible, I try not to take as many of the boxes because they can take up a lot of space, but I do often find myself taking boxes for items like bracelets and larger like hoop earrings. So these are this houses my Hermes bracelet, this houses my Dior earrings. And what I will also do is layer in some additional pieces inside these boxes. So let's say, because I, you know, wanted to take my earrings, but there's some space that's left in here, I'll take one of my necklaces and I will place it inside and then close up the box. This way, you know, even though I am taking the original box, I am taking my earrings and I'm taking some additional pieces as well. Now, if you're wondering what was happening with this necklace over here, for items like necklaces or bracelets that can get tangled in transit and then be a nightmare to try to detangle later, this is my top tip for traveling with them or even storing them. So I take one of these, you know, these like plastic bags that have the Ziploc kind of tie at the top. I put the item in here, so I'll put the bracelet or the necklace in here. I'll leave a little bit of it hanging off the edge on the outside, and then I'll shut tight the plastic bag so that the necklace end, the loose end over here, won't be tangling any of the necklace that's in the bag. And even though this moves around, it can move around as much as it wants, it really won't get tangled. It also means that I can put a lot of these, I can slot this really easily into an existing box like this and not worry about getting any damage on any of the pieces. My top tip for traveling with shoes outside of using the dust bag is to also make sure to stuff them with some of the original stuffing. So especially the biggest area I think of, you know, weakness or potential weakness on a shoe is the front toe box area. So to prevent any kind of structural damage happening up here, I always travel by stuffing the original kind of tissue paper in there. If you don't have the original, that's totally okay. You can also make one. You can use newspapers or tissue paper that you have at home, and you can just make sure to stuff it all the way in there, and so that it just has something to support the shape that it has, and it'll prevent any kind of major damage happening on that side. Alright, so those are all of my top tips for traveling with your Chanel and Hermes and other designer items. I'm sure some of these might be things that you already do, but I also hope that you were able to get some ideas from some of the other tips that I employ as I travel. You know, this was an instance where I was doing international travel and I knew I had a lot of things that I wanted to carry with me, and I would have a checked bag. There are some instances like shorter weekend trips where you know you don't really want to check a bag in general and you want all of your stuff to fit in a carry-on. I have traveled with my nice items in just a carry-on as well. In that case, you have to be even more particular about the versatility of an item that you're going to take with you, because you have less space to travel with, or less space to take more items. So you have to be really deliberate about the pieces that you're taking with you. In addition, nesting your bags or nesting items within your bags is another key tip that helps when you're just traveling with a carry-on. And in that case, because I'll be having some clothing items with me as well, either I'll use that as additional stuffing, or I'll make sure to lay out a little bit of space so that the bag can fit in there, and I like pack around it to minimize anything really squishing on top of it. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to leave them down below or head on over to Instagram and I'd be happy to help however I can. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate all of your support and feedback. If you like this video and you enjoy this content, I put out videos every Sunday. So if you'd like to be one of the first to know, feel free to subscribe. So until next time, bye!